Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, what we're trying to do here is catch up with modern times and allow people to do refurbishment, modernization of their plants and their projects. If we don't allow this, we're going to lose the initial investment because they know these investments that the last 20, 30, 40 years are going to need some recapitalization. They still have to meet the standards of the program, and that, the minimum of 10 million or 20 million in that area. So with that, members, I would ask that you vote no on this amendment.
Mr. Martinez Fischer, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield?
Will Mr. Murphy yield for
Absolutely,
questions?
Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Speaker Murray. Thank you, Chairman Murphy. Chairman, why would we need to further incentivize industries with a 313 to do a renovation project if the idea of the program, if I recall, is to make a generous 313 to attract that business and make them business partners? Why would we need to continue to incentivize?
Well, it's not about continuing. It's about doing a new one if they meet the investment threshold. So we're still asking them to meet the 10 million or the 20 million investment threshold. If you have $1 billion plant after 10 years or 20 years, it's going to need some recapitalization. The credit runs out after 10 years and they go to full value. So this says if you do some sort of major renovation of your project, you can qualify for an additional 313 at that time. And again, this is permissive. The local school board still has to choose to say yes. The comptroller still has to do a study saying there's an economic benefit for doing so.
Mr. Speaker, may I get some order, please?
Members, please take your conversations outside the rail.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Chairman Murphy, at what point do these businesses become true partners? So in other words, we've already given a 313 agreement, and in many instances, these are long-term agreements, am I right?
The 10 years is the limitation of value, but usually the asset life is much longer. So for the next 20, 30, 40 years, they're paying 100% of their property taxes.
And I get it, but the notion that we would incentivize a company to get here, and that's what 313 is all about, is to incentivize companies to get them here, get them invested in our state, do good things, make some money, create some jobs. At some point, the incentive runs out. They know that. They know that today. You can't get a 313 today for renovation, can you?
No, the idea of this program, it's really different in this reform program that we're proposing in this bill, and that's to make sure that people have an incentive to keep doing it. It's not simply the initial investment, but if you make additional investment, you would have that opportunity as well. And an important change in this bill, just so the body knows, is from day one, you're paying property taxes on 20% of your value from day one, 100% of your property taxes on your INS from day one, and those are two very large changes for the 313 program we have today. So I wouldn't want you to look at the 313 program and agreements we have today and judge this program by those agreements. These are fundamentally different. They pay from day one.
They may pay from day one, but they cost from day one too. And every column of the fiscal note shows that we're losing money here. And so what I'm saying, again, they've come to Texas, we've incentivized them. They cannot get a 313 to do a renovation or an upgrade today. You're going to depart from the program with the proposal you have to issue, I believe, into 2032, a program that now says if you decide you want to make a renovation or add to the existing footprint, we're going to give you another incentive. And so I'm just saying, at what point does it end? At what point do we say, hey, you're here now, you're invested just like we are, and rather taking this money and giving it back to you, whatever money we have, let's go incentivize somebody else?
Well, I'd make 2 points, Representative Martinez Fischer, and that is, one is, the program's been a huge winner. We've brought $250 billion of investment to Texas. We have to find a way to keep that investment here, to keep it viable, and to keep it going. That's what this does. The second is, with them paying from day one, there are partners from the very beginning in this program.
If they're partners, we must be the limited partner. They must be the general partner, and they get to call the shots. Now, it should be the other way around. This is a grant of the state. This is an award of the state. It's not a grant, nor is it an award. That's a mischaracterization. If you allow me to finish, I'll certainly allow you the courtesy of a rejoinder. But this program would not exist but for the fact that the state creates it. And
That is a fact.
so this is a state program, regardless of where the money comes from ultimately, regardless of where the decisions are made locally. This is a state program, and we make those decisions to decide how many times we're going to let you re-up, if you will. And I just think it's a dangerous policy in my mind to say we're going to incentivize you to be here, and if you decide to take on a renovation, I mean, we don't even explain what a renovation is in your proposal, so it could be any renovation. We're going to give them another economic incentive to do that, and I think that's bad policy.
Well, any renovation would have to meet the same investment threshold as the rest of the 313 program. I think that's an important difference here.
Okay, and I think all Representative Tinderholt's trying to do is to say, we're going to go on with the program as it works today, but we're not going to give that incentive for companies that just want to do renovations.
No, I understand what the amendment does, and I think that's why it's important to attract the initial investment if they know that 20 years, 30 years, as our partner, as a long-term investment, they're going to make these investments. This makes that initial investment much more attractive. And I would also point out the fiscal note, the assumption is this program has no benefit and no effect. And so that's why there's a cost. What I would suggest to you is every dollar of cost is actually a dollar of revenue. This brings money to the state rather than losing it. With that, I ask you to vote against the amendment.
And I appreciate what you're saying with regard to fiscal note, but you and I, we've been here long enough to know that we take the good notes with the bad notes.
And we sit together in ways and we listen to these.
And I've been looking at 313 agreements. It's a matter of policy for 5 terms now on Ways and Means. You have as well. You have a lot of ownership on this subject matter.
Sure.
And I compliment you for it because it's dense. But at the end of the day, we just have to look at a fairness. We don't, we take companies at their word to incentivize them to get here, that they wouldn't come here otherwise, so we incentivize them. Now they're here, and that's not enough. We have to continuously re-incentivize them to make upgrades and to invest in our state. I don't see that as being good business partners when we have to constantly look over our shoulder to see what this arrangement's like. I like an arm's length transaction. I like them to know what they're getting when they come here. I don't think there should be an expectation that we have to continue to curry favor to keep them here.
Yeah, I don't know that we ever anticipated that we were bringing $250 billion to Texas with this program, and now we're faced with, well, how do we make sure we keep it? And given what's going on in the globe, people wanting to bring investments to Texas from around the country, around the world, how do we make this program even better? And that's where this idea came to put those in.
Right, and I think that, as you know, there's tremendous 313 in San Antonio, very specifically the Toyota manufacturing plant. Nobody gave Toyota extra incentives to build the Tacoma. They started building the Tundra. It was wildly successful. It sold through the roof. And Toyota said, this is working so well, we're going to add another line, and we're going to build the Tacoma. They didn't come up here hat in hand saying, if you give me more money, we'll build the Tacoma. They said, no, we're business partners. No, we're going to create jobs. No, we have suppliers. No, we have local economic benefits. And so that's an example of a program and a policy that I think works well, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. I'm leery about anything that says we have to continuously provide a corporate incentive to keep them in Texas. And I just think that's what's wrong with that policy without the amendment.
And I appreciate your points. Again, we don't have to do this. It's totally permissive. When we achieve this level of success, and you want people to modernize and keep those assets productive, keep in the U.S., and they have choices all around the world. Toyota's a good example where they can put their money. We want them to know we want their money here. We want that investment here.
Gentleman's time's expired.